Kakadosh Boker Tov. We're going to be continuing with the halachot of the 3 weeks. There's a minhag to refrain from Shehechiyanu on whether it's going to be a new fruit or a new clothing throughout the entire 3 weeks, starting from Shiva Asar B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av. And the minhag is to be machmid even during the Shabbatot, which means that even though by Sefirat HaOmer, if you remember, we brought down there was a machloket to do with whether you're allowed to say Shehechiyanu or not. And then they said that they permitted during the Shabbatot in between the Sefirat HaOmer. Here we have more of a stringency that even during the Shabbatot of the 3 weeks, we refrain from saying any type of Shehechiyanu, whether it's going to be on new clothing or if it's going to be on a new fruit. Where exactly does this halacha come from? So the Sefer Chasidim brings down, Tiyesh Chasidim v'Chasidim Rishonim shelo yiyu ochlim pri chadash ben Shiva Asar B'Tammuz l'Tisha B'Av, כי אמרו, איך נברך שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה? Right? The Sefer Chasidim comes and he says, it's just a logic. How could a person come and say Shehechiyanu during the 3 weeks? A person is in a time of mourning, so it just doesn't go. How does it go exactly? לכן כתב בספר מנהגי מעריל, is also brought down in מנהגי מעריל, שטוב למנוע לברך זמן על שום פרי חדש כל בן מצרים מעט ימי שמחה. So he says, however, though the Leket Yosher brings down the name of Trumat HaDeshen, that he would make Shehechiyanu after Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, and even after Rosh Chodesh Av, if it was something which is Chaviv, and he said, why? Em avinin ala mitzvot, which means if you already have the opportunity to make a bracha, so you make the bracha. You're saying Shehechiyanu during the... Fine, but at the end of the day, Em avinin ala mitzvot, you're not going to skip out on a mitzvah if it came to your hands. So the Ramah brings down the Shub Yamin Ze'ev, that if you could make the bracha ala pri after Tisha B'Av, so then you're not supposed to do it during Ben HaMetzarim. So it's mashma though, but if you cannot, right, then again, you would be able to, which means if you could postpone it, so postpone it after Tisha B'Av. But if not, you would be able to do it beforehand. Now, Maran was posek in Shulchan Aruch, Tetov li zeh minoma shechiyanu ben mitzvim pri al levush, aval al pidyon haben omer velo yachmitz mitzvah. But on pidyon haben, you could do it, and you're not going to be machmitz mitzvah. What does that mean? Right, we actually have a pidyon haben that's Motzei Shabbat. So on Pidyon HaBen, you're allowed to say Shehechiyanu. Just like by Brit Milah, you say Shehechiyanu. So to Pidyon HaBen, you also say Shehechiyanu. Even though this Motzei Shabbat, there's going to be another Chakira. There's 2 Chakirot actually to have. One Chakira is on a normal year. Forget about this year. On a normal year. When exactly does the 3 weeks start? Does the 3 weeks start from the night of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz? Or does it start from the day of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz? And you could go both ways. Technically, you would say, listen, maybe it only starts during the day. Why? Because when does the Tanit start? Right? If the Tanit only starts during the day, so therefore you can only start during the day. What's an afkamina? A person wants to come and he wants to take a haircut the night of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, which means that the next morning, they're going to come and they're going to fast. So the night before, are you allowed to listen to music? Are you allowed to take haircuts? Are you allowed to do all these other things, which usually we would prohibit afterwards? So that's going to be one chakira to do with that. When does it start, the minagim of the 3 weeks? Does it start from the actual day of Shiva Asar Tammuz, just like the ta'anit starts during the day? Or do you say it has nothing to do with ta'aniyot? The only ta'anit that you do at nighttime is basically Kippur and Tisha B'Av. Other than, but the halachot are still there. We still say Anenu, Avinu Anenu b'yom tzom ta'anit hazeh on the night before the ta'anit. So it is still a day of ta'anit. The only thing is there's special halachot that we only start during the morning and we don't do the full night before as well. So that's going to be one question. Another question is going to be this year. Even if you're going to tell me in a regular year that maybe it only starts during the day, maybe this year it would start during the night, because this year, since it's postponed to Motzei Shabbat, so therefore what happens? So therefore what happens is really Motzei Shabbat, it's already the 18th of Tammuz. It's not the 17th of Tammuz. So it could be that this year, even if you're going to tell me that in a normal year it does start on during the day and not the night before, maybe this year, according to everybody, it would start during the nighttime. Why? Because that nighttime is not anymore the 17th, it's actually even the 18th. Right? It's true, the next morning, on Sunday morning this year, we are going to be fasting, but that's just because it was postponed to the 18th. Right? Why don't we do it the day before? Why don't we do it on Thursday? Right? Why don't we come and we do it on the Thursday, the fast, instead of doing it on Sunday? So, right, the Gemara Masechet Megillah says, right, Em Magdimim Puranut. What does that mean? Magdimim Puranut Lo Magdimino. What does that mean? We don't want to come and bring the Puranut onto ourselves earlier. The only time we would do such a thing is going to be with Ta'anit Esther, because since it says Velo Ya'avor, so it doesn't make sense to start doing the Ta'anit after the time of the Megillah, after Purim. You would only do Ta'anit Esther beforehand. So that's the only one that if it would actually come out, we're actually going to be Magdim, right, the Ta'anit, whether it's going to be to the Thursday before, if it would come out on Shabbat or all the other things. But if not, we never bring it forwards, we always push it off later on. So this year it could be that for sure we would actually start all the dinim, whether it's going to be music or all the other things. However, though, did you realize here it did say that for Pidyon Ben, you're allowed to do it, so therefore, even if you're going to say that it does start this Motzei Shabbat, there's no problem, you would still do the Shehechiyanu on this Motzei Shabbat. However, though, then it brings down the Taz, that the Taz wanted to be Matir Shehechiyanu during these days. Why? He says maybe a person is going to pass away, and if he's going to pass away, he won't get the mitzvah. If you're going to wait until after Tisha B'Av, a person doesn't have a guarantee on his life, so therefore he says, you might as well do the mitzvot, as many mitzvot as you can, beforehand, you do it right now. And that's also the Gaon Mivilna. He says, Chumra Yitirah, right? Den chamurim me'avem yom hamitah. He says, it's not any worse than, right, the avelut on yom hamitah. And we say in brachot, met aviv v'hu yorsho, but tchila omer baruch dayan ha'emet, v'sov omer metov v'metiv. Right? And the Gemara says that if there's no brothers, what do you say? Shehechiyanu. This was actually a very famous question that happened with Rabbi Rakov, alav shalom. This is one of my Rabbanim in grade 10. I remember he told us this when we were in a camp. We used to have a camp in the summer. And he told me that there was somebody that went and he asked him the following question. You're not supposed to say Shehechiyanu, so now they're going to buy a new car. So do you say Shehechiyanu on new car? So obviously we're not talking about a lease, right? Because a lease is not yours. We're obviously talking about that you're financing it and now it's yours. So now the question is, do you make the Shehechiyanu or not? And therefore, can you do it during the 3 weeks? That was the question. So I remember he went and he said, right, go ask your shul rabbi. So fine. They asked the shul rabbi. It was the rabbi in, I don't remember exactly the name. He also passed away. And what happened is the rabbi came back to him and he told him, so no, what was halacha? So he went and he asked him the following question. Who uses the car? Is it only your personal car or is it also used by the family? So the person said, listen, the family also uses it. It's not only my car. It's used by the family as well. So he says, fine. So then you don't say Shehechiyanu, you say Va'atov Metiv. Va'atov Metiv, you're allowed to say during the 3 weeks. It's only the Shehechiyanu, right? That there's a minhag not to. How are you saying Shehechiyanu v'kimam during the 3 weeks? So therefore, you're allowed to do it even during the 3 weeks. So here he comes and he brings a proof from Yerusha. What does that mean? A person's parent passes away. So what does he have to do? He tears his clothing. He says Dayan Amet. But now comes the Yerusha. When the Yerusha comes, he says Va'atov Metiv. But when is that Hatov HaMetiv? Hatov HaMetiv is only if he's got brothers or other inheritors. Let's say he's the sole inheritor. If he's the sole inheritor, all he says is Shehechiyanu. So therefore comes the Gaon Mivilna and he brings a proof from the fact that Yom HaMitah you would still say Dayan Emet and then you would still say Shehechiyanu. So to here we're not any worse than Yom HaMitah. And therefore if we're not worse for Yom HaMitah, we would still be able to say Shehechiyanu even during the 3 weeks. So he comes and he says, however though, right, he says we found in the Magen Avraham that he explains why the Yisur is because the Zman is Zman of Puraniyut, and therefore you shouldn't say Shehechiyanu during this time. But it's not because of Avelut, which means now we're going to find out that there's a different reason. If you're going to tell me that the reason is because of Avelut, we just brought a beautiful proof that Avelut, you're allowed to say Shehechiyanu. When Yerusha, there's only one person inheriting, right, and the father or mother passed away, now they inherit. So fine, you could do it. But if you're going to tell me that it's nothing to do with Avelut, it has to do with Puranuyot, there you can't bring any Rayot anymore, you can't bring any proof from the halachot of Avelut. And because of that, the Magen Avraham says, it's going to be a surah, and that was also the Arizal HaKadosh, and the Knesset Gedolah, Shubet David, also the Rav Chida in his Sefer Shut Chaim Sha'al. The Alei Adas says that was a minhag also in Tunisia, not to make any Shehechiyanu from Shiva Sabbath until after Tisha B'Av. The Kinot Avotenu says that was a minhag of Morocco also, as is also brought down in Tivot HaMarav and Zocher Bereit Avot. And therefore again, it comes out that we have this minhag that we're not supposed to do it during the 3 weeks, Bli Neder will try to speak about another time. What about the Shabbatot between the 3 weeks? What is the difference between Sefirat HaOmer and these 3 weeks? However, though, again, here we have it, that was a minhag that has nothing to do with Avelut. It's a Zman of Puranut. And during the time of Puranut, we don't want to come and start saying Shehechiyanu and thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, we're just going to come and postpone it until after Tisha B'Av.